We just did session 1, and in session 1, basically, we're identifying words to put through the explicit vocabulary routine. That was really our objective. Keeping in mind that we don't want to focus on a wide variety of words. We want to focus in specifically on words that we can teach, and we want to chew on them a little more than we normally would so that we know the ultimate goal is comprehension. Okay? So that was really our focus for session 1, and I talked a lot about this bookmark. You will need that to keep that handy for this session as well. Now, session 2 is really more focused on, you've already selected your words, okay? We'll refer back to the words that we selected many times during this session. Also, the words that you selected from your individual books. Keep those handy on your sticky notes because we're coming back to those in a few minutes, okay? We'll talk about enemy pie again. We will talk about my 9th grade New York Times article again, okay? But really what we're going to focus on creating during booster session number 2 is number 1, and this is so important, that student-friendly definition and how to really create a student-friendly definition, an illustrative sentence, okay? That's important. So we're going to do a definition, a sentence that illustrates the meaning of that word, and lastly, that student engagement prompt, which is basically all about the initial introduction of that word, surface level introduction, having them use that word back and forth, just so that they're exercising that understanding of the word. Yes? We will refer back several times to Bringing Words to Life, Isabel Beck's book. I'll actually show you some quotes from that book as well. So let's real quickly go over our bookmark. Get it with me. Let's look at step 1. I know we've been through this before, but I'm going to be very explicit with you. And when you turn this training around, it would behoove you to do the same thing. Step 1, highlight words in the text that are likely to be unfamiliar to your students. Did we do that? We did that in session 1. We are confident that we can move on. Step 2, we circled the words that could be categorized as tier 2 words. Yes? We did that. Then, step 2A, of those words, we pulled out words that we're actually going to put through that explicit routine, that 6-step vocabulary routine. Okay? We noted them. We have them written down on a sticky note off to the side of the text. We know what words we are going to explicitly teach for that week. Okay? Then step 3, we took care. We didn't just move away from words in that text that they may not understand. We addressed that too. And it didn't take a whole lot of time, did it? We underlined additional words other than those tier 2 words that you selected in step 2 above that are necessary for our students to understand the text. Okay? Then we decided, bless you, how we're going to teach those words. So we talked about pairing, parallel language, showing a picture. Several of us found pictures right there within the text that we could show. So these are not time-consuming things, but they definitely are time well spent. Okay? So we've gone over the bookmark. Again, on the first side, these are the criteria that we're looking for, and these are our test questions whenever we encounter these words, okay? So I'll put that away for now. Now, bear with me. I'm going to switch over to the PC and hope that the document camera gods are with me. Yes, it worked. Okay. You know, when you present, it's like the little things that just thrill you when they actually work. It's like any good production. Okay, so this is a website that I've pulled up for you. This is called onelook.com, and at the end of this session, I'll give you some other resources that you can use, but here's what I love about it. You type in one word, you get many different resources, many different definitions from different resources for that one specific word. Okay? So let's just say that I'm going to type in the word covert and see what comes up. And I'm a Mac user now, So I'm trying to do the two-finger Mac roll up here, and that's not working for me. So let me go back to PC land. Okay. I'm still trying to do it. I just talked about it. I'm still doing it. So look at all these definitions that come up for the word covert. I mean, you've got about 29. Well, no, there's more than that. There are 30. Ooh, they're still going. 36 definitions for the word covert, all from different sources. Okay? So I'm switching back over. onelook.com if you want to jot that down, but it will be in your binder. So I'm going back to document camera. Let me cross my fingers and say a quick prayer. Yes, okay. So what I did for the word covert is I went ahead and I pulled out like the first 3 definitions. Oh, no, I have 5. Sorry, I thought I had 3. Hey, I'm ahead of myself. I have 5 definitions here. And just look at those definitions. Can you see them okay? What do you notice? What do you notice about all those definitions? The word covert, not open. Do we see some words that are pretty common? Okay. Well, I'll tell you, the first thing that I notice is that the definitions are, well, they're actually very different from one another. I mean, there are some commonalities, but for the most part, they're pretty different. And honestly, I'm looking, no definition is really that helpful in ensuring that students understand the meaning of that word. Okay? So let me direct you. This is page 44 of Isabel Beck's book, Bringing Words to Life. And I pulled this out and highlighted a few things that I'd like to go over with you here. So Isabel Beck and her co-authors looked at dictionary definitions and how they can be confusing. And they identified 4 features that can detract from understanding the meaning of a word. And this is really interesting. Here are the 4 features that they have identified. Okay? The first one is weak differentiation. So what this means is that the definition doesn't really explain how the word is different from similar words. So for example, in one dictionary definition, the word conspicuous is defined as easily seen. Well, that's very similar to the definition for the word visible. So probably a more accurate definition would be something that appears to be inappropriate for a situation. It's much more explicit. It's a much clearer definition of that word. Okay? They also identified that definitions can also contain vague language. Wow. How confusing could that be for my students? The definition maybe doesn't provide a specific explanation of the word. So here's an example that the authors cite here. Using be a type to define the word typical. That's really not the way we use that word, is it? The word typical. Really isn't. So the definition being a type is definitely, that's vague language to students. Okay? That is certainly not a student-friendly definition. Another problem that they found with definitions is that, well, the more likely interpretation factor. So what that means is basically the definition doesn't explain the word in the way that it's most often used. So for example, the word devious is defined as straying from the right course. Well, that might lead a student to think that devious refers to getting lost, going the wrong way, getting off course. Okay? Mom, Dad, we were at the fair and I couldn't find you because I was devious. Right? I take my son to Disneyland. He's like, Daddy, I couldn't find you. I was devious. We don't want them to experience that. That more likely interpretation, okay? The fourth problem that they've identified here in bringing words to life is multiple pieces of information. So in other words, some definitions might provide fewer or a few similar words that are separated by semicolons, but they don't explain how those words actually relate to one another. So here's an example. If I take the word exotic, well, that word is defined as foreign, semicolon, strange, semicolon, not native. Okay, I think a better definition might be something that is special or unusual because it comes from a distant place. It's just a more explicit explanation for them, and it's much more focused. Okay? Okay, so I'm going to start introducing the steps now before we go into the I do. So we will learn 3 steps for introducing students to a word. So your handout, Steps for Developing Student-Friendly Explanations of Vocabulary Words, if you would go ahead and locate that now. Steps for Developing Student-Friendly Explanations of Vocabulary Words. It looks like this. Okay. I don't see anybody glaring at me, so I think we've all found it. And I highlighted what I thought was most significant here because the first step, okay, the first step is to build that student-friendly definition because we just looked at examples of how vague definitions can be. So we understand how significant that is. Okay? So in bringing words to life, Isabel Beck and her colleagues identified 2 principles to employ when building that student-friendly definition. And the first one is to highlight, and that doesn't mean necessarily highlight with a highlighter, but it could. But basically, you're going to note what is unique or particular about the word. So you'd ask yourself, how is the word typically used? And how do we try to communicate when we use that word? Okay? Also, the authors have identified that you should use student-friendly language when explaining the meaning. Okay? So let's take a look now. We're going to stop right here. We'll come back to this in just a moment, to this handout. I just want to show you how the authors use these principles to define the word covert. Covert, and this is just a word that they've identified. Here, let me pull the rest of this off. Okay, I can do this. Let me start down here. The word covert. So the definition that we found is kept from sight, semicolon, secret, semicolon, hidden. So what are students most likely to make of this definition? The clearest part for students would seem to be the word secret. So students might well interpret the word as a synonym for secret without even stopping to realize that the word is an adjective rather than a noun. So beyond this possible misinterpretation, the definition sounds as if it applies to something or someone that you'd want to hide. So they go on to say that this is at odds with the way that the word covert is most often used, because really, we most often use that word to describe an action that's done in a secretive way. So to define covert as describe something that is done in a hidden or secret way. That makes it much clearer to students. Okay? So let's look at another page here, just one moment. Let's look at improvise. Yeah, it's on the same page. I'm more organized than I thought. So let's look at improvise and do the same thing. So the definition for improvise, to make, invent, or arrange with whatever is on hand. Okay, so the definition seems to lack a key component of improvisation. The idea is that you use whatever is on hand because you don't have exactly what is called for. Also, the make, invent, or arrange trio makes the whole concept a little bit vague. A definition that better characterizes improvise and is really more concrete and accessible might be to make something you need by using whatever is available at the moment. Okay, so now I'm going to return to that handout. And if you still have it handy, steps for developing student-friendly explanation of vocabulary words. So the next step here is to draft a sentence that you can share with your students and demonstrate how that word is used. And then the final step is to determine how students will initially interact with that word. So some examples might include using a think, turn, talk, thumbs up, thumbs down, visuals. Okay? Now, let me say this about visuals, and you can look, it's noted right there on the bottom of the handout. I'm going to read it verbatim. Be cautious about the visuals you select. Did you hear me say that in session 1? So many people take this for granted. The Tier 2 words usually do not have a concrete way to illustrate the meaning. So use only visuals that clearly and accurately communicate meaning to introduce a word. Use all the other visuals later in the week. So when you get to those deep processing activities and you're talking about what it is and what it's not, etc., that might be a time that you can use those other visuals. Okay? But that's after they've had a few exposures. Okay? Okay, I am ready now to move on to the I do portion of this session. So I will now model the steps for developing student-friendly explanations of vocabulary words. And so for this portion, you'll go ahead and get out your I do activity handout. And I've already got this filled in for you here. I'm just going to put it up here so you can see it. Now, for this, I'm going back to my New York Times article. Remember, I'm that 9th grade teacher again, and I'm doing my nonfiction genre study. The words that I've pulled out and that I choose to put through the explicit routine are confined, stimulus, and subsequent. Okay? So let's go to step 1 of the I do. And I think I can explain all that right from here. So first, I'm going to locate a dictionary definition that best aligns with the contextual use of my word. So I've used onelook.com to find the 3 definitions that are listed here on your handout. And of these definitions, I will use to build my student-friendly definition. Okay, so here are the definitions. I'm going to use subsequent. Remember, I pulled this word right out of my New York Times article. It's just one of my words I'm using as an example. So subsequent. Well, the Macmillan Dictionary says happening or coming after something else. That's pretty good. Pretty good. Collins English Dictionary says occurring after succeeding. And then vocabulary.com says following in time or order. So we see each definition provides the same meaning, though I wouldn't say that any of those definitions ensure that students understand the meaning of that word subsequent. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to build a student-friendly definition that will be at that student level, at their level at that point that they can understand without a doubt. So I review the 3 definitions, and I find those common words such as happening, coming after, occurring after, following. And those common words will provide me for a very good foundation for my student-friendly definition. Okay? Now remember that we want to highlight the uniqueness of the word. Highlight the uniqueness of the word. I go back to this handout. Highlight the uniqueness of the word. So I think, looking at these definitions, I think the Macmillan definition does that best. Happening or coming after something else. Would you agree? Okay, so next we want to make sure that the definition uses student-friendly language. That is so important. And I know my students. Your teachers, your teachers, you know your students. You know how to communicate with them. But I have to use that student-friendly language so that it's easy to understand and it contains only words that my students already know. So to do that, I'm going to review the definition to identify the words that might be unfamiliar to my students in much the same way that I would review the text beforehand, to identify the words that I'm going to teach. Now, I don't really think that any of these words would be unfamiliar to my 9th grade students. Again, we're talking 9th graders. I think I'm okay. But finally, I'm going to check whether or not this definition indicates how the word is used in this particular text, in this article. This article. And how it's anchored with one of the following words. Remember, we talked about building that definition. Something, starting with something, someone, describes, because these components are not present in the Macmillan definition. So I've revised the definition here. Subsequent is an adjective which is used to describe a noun, so we know that. But so as a result, I have to add the word describes to that definition to indicate how that word is being used. So adding this language also addresses the suggestion to anchor the definition with one of the following words: something, someone, or describes. Okay? So describes. So my student-friendly definition for the word subsequent is describes something that happens or comes after something else. So it's very similar to the Macmillan definition. That was step 1 of the I do. Step 1, I took my article, pulled out one word. I chose to do subsequent. I pulled up some definitions from onelook.com. I found words that seem to be recurring over and over. I looked back at this handout for developing student-friendly definitions, and I came up with a definition that I think my 9th grade students can understand. So now I'm moving to step 3 of the I do. I am going to write a sentence that demonstrates how my word is used. So for subsequent, I've written this sentence. When the dentist found a cavity on Monday, a subsequent appointment was scheduled for the following Friday to have the cavity filled. Good. You think my 9th grade students could possibly identify with that? I think that's a nice sentence. So, that's pretty clear. I've defined the word, step 1. I've used the word in a sentence, a clear sentence, something they can identify with, something that means something to them. Because if you talk about doing your taxes in this sentence, they're not going to know what you're talking about. You've lost them. They're gone. Bye. So then, if I do that successfully, I'm ready to move on to step 3. So step 3 is I'm going to determine how students will initially, say that word with me, initially. No, let's say it again. 1, 2, 3. Initially react with this word. So it's really a very simple thing. Do not overthink it at this point. You're just getting them to use the word on a very surface, initial level. You're going to see something similar to this when we get into deep processing. So you might be saying, he's already talking about deep processing. Well, yeah, this could be a part of deep processing, but that's not what we're doing right now. We're just getting them to use the word and really exercise what they know so far about the word. So for the word subsequent, I've decided that I want my students to respond yes or no by showing a thumbs up or a thumbs down. And I put down the following examples. Would the subsequent math lessons make more sense to Ariel after she went to tutoring? And then they show me their thumbs up or their thumbs down. And here's a crucial part. They need to tell you why or why not. Why or why not is really where you find out if they understand this word. If you skip that, you're not going to know, because anybody can sit there and do this. Why or why not? And have them articulate it. Whether it's to one another or you. I mean, obviously it needs to be to you because you need to be walking around and assessing even as students are having discussions with themselves. Okay? The other one that I like is if you failed a test, oh, and they love this, would you hope that a teacher would make subsequent tests a little easier? Oh, can you imagine? I mean, that was designed for my 9th grade students. They could talk all day about that kind of stuff, okay? So you won't have to prod them to get the why or why not out of them. They're going to tell you, and they're going to share a specific experience with you. They are, as my friend Karen back there says, they are rolling this around in their head. They're rolling it around in their head. That's what we want. Okay, so we have now survived the I do. We see the 3 steps. I went through those with you here on this handout, and you have this. So this is something you can easily refer back to. But my advice, and we'll refer back to this again, my advice is to keep this handout handy. Steps for developing student-friendly explanations of vocabulary words. Let's move on to the we do section of session 2, and let's practice this a little more. Okay. So now what we're going to do, we're going to use the words that we previously selected from Enemy Pie by Derek Munson to practice this process, and we're going to really look at the thinking behind it together. So for this activity, you're going to need that We Do activity handout. We didn't do a landscape marking here. That's all right. I'm getting a little better here. Have you located your We Do activity handout? Great. Now, just to remind you, and I put them on a sticky note here, but these are the words that, remember we didn't go through the whole book, but I showed you the words that Anita Archer and Charles Hughes found from Enemy Pie. I showed you those words. We just did the first 3 pages, but they said out of the whole book, these are the words that they identified that their 2nd grade students may be unfamiliar with. And then I circled nervous, disgusting, and relieved. Okay? So imagine, if you will, I'm a 2nd grade teacher now, and I'm preparing to read Enemy Pie by Derek Munson. And this is a part of my 2nd grade realistic fiction genre study. Okay, so I've read the book, I've selected the words that I think will be unknown to my students, including the following words: perfect, ingredients, trampoline, horrible, recipe, nervous, disgusting, invited, earthworms, relieved, and boomerang. And of this list, I've noted that the following words could be tier 2 words: disgusting, nervous, and relieved. So I now need to develop student-friendly definitions to use as part of my explicit vocabulary routine. So for each of these words that I selected, for this activity, we'll focus on just the words. Let's just do the words disgusting and nervous. And so what I did for you here, because I know, you didn't get to read the whole book, so I just pulled out an excerpt from the book. So the word disgusting, this is how it's used. Remember this book. I will tell you this, he said. Enemy pie is the fastest known way to get rid of enemies. No, of course, this got my mind. Now, of course, this got my mind working. What kinds of things? Disgusting things. Would I put into a pie for an enemy? I brought Dad some weeds from the garden, and he just shook his head. I brought him earthworms and rocks, but he didn't think he'd need those. I gave him the gum I'd been chewing all morning. He gave it right back to me. I love that example because the author has really, right there, given you lots of examples that kiddos can identify with for the word disgusting. So looking at nervous, here it is from Enemy Pie. When Jeremy opened the door, he seemed surprised. He stood on the other side of the screen door and looked at me, waiting for me to say something. I was nervous. Can you play? He asked. He looked confused. I'll go ask my mom, he said. He came back with his shoes in his hand. His mom walked around the corner to say hello. You boys stay out of trouble, she said, smiling. Okay, I just wanted you to see how those words were actually used in the book since we did not go through the entire book. So now we're looking back at our We Do activity handout. And I'm just showing you the definition at this point because I would like for you, and I'm going to partner you off here in just a moment, but what I will need you to do is work with a partner, and I would like for you to come up with, you can use the definitions actually that I've provided here on the handout, but I'd like for you to come up with a student-friendly definition. Remember, you are second grade teachers at this point, okay? Because you have the definitions on your handout, right? Yes. So let me actually assign a word for you. Some of us will do disgusting and some will do nervous. Will you two do disgusting, nervous, disgusting, nervous, disgusting, nervous, disgusting, nervous. Ooh, I should have worn my track shoes. Disgusting, nervous. Let's see, 1, 2, 3, disgusting, 1, 2, 3, nervous. Disgusting, nervous, disgusting, nervous. I'm falling apart, Mr. Spence. Disgusting, nervous. Okay? I already heard it. You're disgusting. They're already making a sentence. Disgusting, nervous. I've got 6 here again. Disgusting, nervous. Did I get everybody? Whew. Okay. Use your definitions provided. Come up with a student-friendly definition. Refer back to that handout to help you. We'll share out in just a moment. Disgusting. Tell me your student-friendly definition of the word disgusting. Who would like to do that?
Describe something that is very gross.
Describe something that is very gross. Very nice. How about nervous? Are you too nervous? Feeling worried or fearful, okay? Let's look at how we did this on my oh, where did it go? Here it is. So for disgusting, describe something that you do not like because it makes you sick. For nervous, describes feeling worried or scared about something. That's why we came back and talked about anchoring. Using those words to anchor. Very important. Consider anchoring the student-friendly definition with one of the following words: something, someone, or describes. Describes something that you do not like because it makes you sick. Describes feeling worried or scared about something. Okay? Now, we are moving on to step 2. That was just step 1. We created that student-friendly definition. Now, you're going to work with your partner to create an illustrative sentence for that word. Same word that you just used. Create an illustrative sentence and fill it in that column. Okay? I'll give you about 2 minutes to do that. I think this is a quicker process. Then I'm going to check in and ask 2 people to share. Let me put the other handout up here. Step 2. Yes, sir.
After Francis played soccer during PE, he smelled disgusting.
You must work at an elementary school. I love it. Nervous.
As I walked into my new class on the first day of school, I was feeling nervous.
Oh, I think you and I were kind of thinking the same way. Let me show you my examples. The disgusting apple was rotten and had a worm in it. I saw some of you agree. I love facial expressions from up here. Before the first day of school, I was nervous that the second grade would be too hard for me. Okay. So that is step 2. Okay. Now, step 3, I keep pulling back to this handout because really this is your guide through this section. Okay? So we're going to determine how students will initially interact with the word. Initially. Like I said, my friend says, rolling it around in their head, making them use it, seeing what they know about it so far. So now you will work with a partner to develop a student engagement prompt for your assigned word. Okay? As a reminder, here are some examples right here on this handout of student engagement prompts. We're talking about Think, Turn, Talk, where you provide a prompt for students to share their understanding of the word with a partner. We're talking thumbs up, thumbs down. You can provide strategic examples that engage all students in determining meaning. It could be a visual. Provide a visual to illustrate the student-friendly definition. And remember to be cautious, though. I've said this several times already today. Be cautious about the visuals. Make sure that they clearly and accurately communicate the meaning when you are introducing a specific word. So if you would, please work with your partner to create a student engagement prompt for your assigned word. And I'll come back to you in a couple of minutes. So for the word disgusting, who can give me an example of a student engagement prompt?
Students to make a face that you would make if you saw something disgusting, and then tell your partner when you would make that face.
They would love that. They would love it. Second grade? Absolutely. Okay, how about nervous?
We said maybe sort into groups by feeling. So we had a group of nervous and then not nervous, and then give them like strips, like playing with sister. Would that make you nervous or not nervous? Going to a new school. Put it in groups by what you feel, like under the section. Watching a movie with family, would that make you nervous or not nervous?
Nice. You see how there's some carryover here into like the whole deep processing pool, right? She's got her toe dipped in there already, right? That's great. We're just talking initial reaction to the word at this point, but great. I always love that part because you give us ideas that we possibly didn't think of. But here's what I recorded. So for disgusting, we would do a think, turn, talk. What are some foods that you consider disgusting? What makes them so disgusting? And let me tell you, I don't think they were ever going to get us back together in Austin when we got trained on this. Our team at the Von Gross Center, we just all went off on this one. I think it was about lunchtime, though, just like now. So nervous, I would do a thumbs up, thumbs down. Okay, I would ask these questions. Would you be nervous if you were called to the principal's office? And then the almighty important what? Why or why not? And have them tell you why. Number 2, would you be nervous if you were playing with your best friend on the playground? They would give you a thumbs up or a thumbs down, and then you have them answer, right? Number 3, would you be nervous if you were unprepared for a big test? Why or why not? And then make sure they talk about it. So those are the 3 steps. And so we've done now the we do. So what I'm going to do for you now is I will model. I'm just going to come out there and model for you how I would introduce disgusting and nervous using the explicit vocabulary routine and my student-friendly definitions. And you're going to be my students for this. Aren't you excited? Good morning, 2nd grade. How are you? Oh, so look, their voices went up an octave. I love it. I love it. So we're going to talk about 2 words today, and let Mr. Rain get it together here. Okay, yes. We're going to talk about 2 words. The first word that we're going to talk about today is disgusting. Say the word with me. Disgusting. Yes, disgusting now is an adjective that describes something that you do not like because it makes you feel sick. So an example, the rotten apple was disgusting and it had a worm in it. Okay? So if you would, talk with your partner right now, boys and girls, and I want you to talk about that word disgusting. What are some foods that you would consider to be disgusting? And tell your partner, what makes those foods so disgusting? Go. See how it gets them going. I don't care how old they are. Okay, come back to me, boys and girls. Come back. Mr. Rain needs your attention. So who can tell me what food do you think is disgusting and tell me why? I want to hear all about it. Who can tell me? Come on and share with me. I need to know so I don't have you over for dinner and serve that food to you.
Meringue and anything with that texture.
Meringue and anything with that texture. So texture is disgusting. Yes. Who's someone else that would like to share? Oysters. Tell me why. So slimy's disgusting to you? You don't like how it feels when it like slides down your throat? You don't even have to swallow. You just open and lean. Okay. You didn't want that, did you? It's just, you can feel it, can't you? You can just feel it. I think we agree with you. Somebody else said something here. Sushi. Why? Why do you think sushi's disgusting?
The raw fish. The raw fish.
Raw. So you like your food cooked or else it's disgusting. I know where you can get some. Oh, the seaweed wrapped around the California roll. I understand. Well, that's okay. I'll make sure that we get some veal calves and gestating sows, and we'll make sure that's what you get. How about that? Boys and girls, I have another word to share with you today. Are you ready? Yes. Are you? Yes. This word is nervous. Say it with me. Nervous. Now, the word nervous, this word is also an adjective, and it describes feeling worried or scared about something. So here's an example. Before the first day of school, I was nervous because I didn't know if I was going to be ready for 2nd grade. Okay? So let's practice our understanding of the word nervous. So I'm going to ask you a few questions, and I want you to give me a thumbs up if you would be nervous, or a thumbs down if you would not be nervous. Okay? Let's begin. Would you be nervous if you were called to the principal's office? You would be nervous? Tell me why.
I would be nervous because I would think I'm in trouble.
Oh, who else? Would anybody not be nervous? Tell me. Oh, let me come over here. Let me come stand by trouble. Ooh. Okay, tell me why you would not be nervous.
Because I'm a good kid.
I got nothing to worry about, she says. My conscience is clear. Okay, so would you be nervous? Thumbs up, thumbs down. Would you be nervous if you were playing with your best friend on the playground? Gosh, everybody in this room trusts their friends. Nobody's afraid of getting pushed off the monkey bars. Here we go. Tell me, you would be nervous playing with your friend on the playground. Tell me why.
Because I can't do the monkey bars with my friend.
So you don't want to be embarrassed in front of your friend? Is that it if you fall off?
Yep.
Interesting. I've got one more question for you. Would you be nervous if you were unprepared for a big test? Thumbs up if you would be nervous, thumbs down if you would not. Oh, ha, ha. Little Miss Fody, tell me, why would you not be nervous?
Because I'm really smart.
I think that's, what is it, 2 snaps in a circle? Right there? Yes. So tell me, who would be nervous if they were unprepared for a big test? Okay, I see a thumbs right here. Tell me why.
Because I would feel like I wouldn't do well.
Doing well is important to us, isn't it? Unless you're just blessed with that natural ability, right? There are those of us who have to study for hours and give up a social life, and that's why we don't go to the prom and all those kinds of things. Then we have those people that can do whatever they want because they don't have to work so hard. So yes, there it is. That's an example of how I would put this through the explicit vocabulary routine. Was that fun? That was fun. Thank you all for sharing. Very good. Okay, so now we are ready to move on to the you do portion. So if you would, please take out the tier 2 words that you chose with your partners and you wrote them down on sticky notes from all the random books, 3rd, 4th, 5th grade books that we put out. I'm going to give you a moment to locate your words. Okay, so working with a partner, I want you to select one word, just one, and I want you to go through all 3 steps of this process. You're going to develop student-friendly explanations of the vocabulary words. You're going to fill out the activity, the we do or the you do activity handout with your ideas. Feel free to consult this handout with all 3 steps on it, and I'll just leave it displayed up there as you do the you do. Okay? So you may begin now. We will come around and monitor. If you have questions, just flag us down. I realize that many of you you have not been through all 3 of the steps at this point, but I think most of you have gotten through at least 2. So we'll have a time after this session, after the taping, that we can ask questions if we need to. So great. Those are the 3 steps. I'm going to go ahead and close out booster session number 2. But I will add that other than onelook.com to get these definitions, there are other resources. And when you get your binders, your big heavy binders that will take up, quarter of your desk space, you'll have other resources in your speaker notes at the end of this section. So congratulations, you've been boosted twice now. Yes.